What's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. So we're talking about financial freedom, the step-by-step playlist, and specifically working through the 7 money milestones. Today we're working on number 4, the 4th money milestone, which is debt. So the reason why I love this book, not just because it's super easy to read, it's pretty short, only takes maybe an hour, hour and a half, but it's super impactful. It's very easy way to be able to read it, and it's fun. I actually enjoy reading it. I've read it multiple times now. But on top of that, it's been on TV hundreds of times, been fact-checked by CNBC. They wrote a glowing review about it, and I've had tremendous success with my clients and my agents with it, and I think it's one of the best, if not the best book out as far as personal finance goes, and it's been number 1 for the last couple years since it's released, so that's evident of that as well. And we've used this in churches and in schools, individuals, and in businesses, and teaching these concepts. And although I've been teaching these concepts for a long time now, this book makes it very simple and very easy to understand and to be able to do that. And so if you want to buy your own book, you can. It's on Amazon. They run between $17 and $26. Or if you'd like for me to pay for it, we are doing what's called a booked up event, where we are getting out over $50,000 in financial literacy resources that myself and my team have paid for. And we want to help give these out to the community so that people can better understand their finances. I think that's the only way we fix things around our country, is it starts in our homes and helping people save more money so that they can do better and be more prosperous in their life. And if you'd like to be a part of that, we would love to have you join us. Down below is a link through MailChimp. It's going to take you to a separate website where you can fill out some basic information that we will need to be able to get in contact with you. We'll send you an email, and if that doesn't work, we'll follow up with a follow-up call, and that way we can get your actual information and we can get some of these resources out to you. And again, this is coming from our pocket. It's not a YouTube giveaway thing or something on social media. It's something that we're specifically doing. But today we're going to be talking primarily about step number 4, money milestone number 4, which is going to be debt. Now, as we talk about debt, I am going to talk from my own personal experience. So just so that you understand, I've been doing this for 9 years, but I've also been on my own debt-free journey for years before that, before I ever started teaching people about it. I was starting to read Dave Ramsey and the Total Money Makeover in 2009. So I've been on this journey for a long time, almost 13 years now, and I've been coaching people how to do it for the last 9. So I've helped thousands of people on their journey of getting out of debt. Now, what I'm going to say today is not financial advice for you specifically, because I don't know you, but I want to give you some ideas of why people stay stuck in debt. And this is a huge thing that I've been seeing with YouTube people who do their debt confessions and who run this like budgeting, I don't want to call it a website, their YouTube channels. And the challenge with it is, and this is a perfect reflection of what happens in real life, is the vast majority of them never get out of debt. And the reason for that is really twofold. Number 1 is usually because they prolong saving to work on their debt. I hear it all the time. They say, well, I want to focus on my debt first. Once my debt is gone, then I'll actually start saving. And 100% of the time, they never get out of debt. And number 2 is because people don't understand the law of attraction. We love to talk about it. We love to say that we understand it. But if you understand the law of attraction, it's not so much just what you bring about comes about, or what you think about you bring about. That is true, but really a better way of saying that is what you focus on, you will get more of. So what do you think people who only focus on their debt get more of? And this is the challenge, and I've seen this multiple times of clients before I start working on them, where they have an idea of what they want to do with debt, and we'll talk about a bunch of the strategies along the way, but maybe they're doing the debt snowball, or they're putting tons of money on their debt. Every month they're making thousands of dollars in payments on their debt. However, when we look at it year over year, sometimes over multiple years, they have made little or no progress on their debt, and they are almost in the same exact situation, even though they're putting thousands of dollars a month onto their debt. How is this humanly possible? Well, I will tell you, and we'll talk about some of the strategies as we go along, but it's this main idea And if it always comes back to this, it will be helpful for you that what you focus on, you will get more of. So I want you to think about maybe even how you handle your own finances. And this is why I say, as much as I love this book, one thing it cannot do is it cannot help you up here. It can give you the education, but it can't help you with your mindset. So think about what most people do in regards to money. What do you think is the first thing that they think of when they wake up? It's their debt, right? What do you think of when they're on their way to work, when they're making money, whether they're doing extra stuff like Uber, whatever it might be? What do you think they're thinking about every waking minute that they're earning money? Paying off their debt. What do you think they're thinking about when they're looking at their bills and their budgeting? They're thinking about their debt. What do you think they think about right before they go to bed? How the heck it is that they're going to pay off their debt. So literally almost every minute of the day, they are worrying about where they are financially and how much debt they have. So go figure that what they end up with is equal to or more debt. Well, yeah, because it's what they're thinking about all day. And here's what's crazy is I've reached out to dozens of people who have done their debt confessions. And many of them, or the ones that I specifically targeted, were ones where they had done a debt confession years after doing their first debt confession, meaning they had multiple years to work on their debt. And what had happened was they had ended up in the same exact situation, or in most cases worse than they were before. So as I reached out to them, I told them what my profession is, that I don't work for these actual debt companies. I don't make money for it. Sometimes they give me a couple bucks, 50 or 100 bucks for a referral, but I'm not making a living doing that. It's just something that I use in the process of helping people out financially. And guess what happened? Almost none of them even responded, or let alone were interested. And that was not that fascinating to me, because guess what happens when we're so focused on something, then obviously that's what our main idea is. That's what we're looking forward to. Our brain has a fantastic way of being able to shift, and it's a great thing that it can do this, but things that we hate, we actually start to look forward to. And the only way to kind of drastically relate this to you is kind of like that person who's in an abusive relationship. If you've ever been in an abusive relationship, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you've ever known a friend in an abusive relationship, you know what I'm talking about. And it's this point where they know it's not right, and they don't like the abuse per se. It obviously is painful, but they are more afraid of not being with somebody or being away from the abuse than they are of what would actually happen or what could happen for them if they were to do something about it. So they would rather stay where they are in the abuse than to try to get outside of it. It's just because they've become so accustomed to it. Our brain almost starts to look forward to those things, even though it's painful. And I think one of the dangers of creating a YouTube channel specifically about your debt confession is you will no longer have a YouTube channel about your debt confessions if you're out of debt. So think about the psychology of that. If we're thinking about the subconscious, if we like creating videos and we like putting out content, our brain can almost become fearful of not having the debt because we wouldn't know what to do in its absence. We wouldn't know what to do if we were not in a relationship that was abusive. Same exact thing happens with money and with our debt. And this oftentimes is exactly what happens with their debt. They might do a good job paying it off, but then they almost become fearful of it and they will get right back into debt. And it's this cycle that will happen over and over and over again through the course of their life. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is not really to scare you, but to understand that I've done this thousands of times now, and the people who get out of debt are the ones who don't focus on their debt. And that might not make any sense to you right now, but I hope to explain it in a better way. And really, if we go back to the law of attraction, because that's the easiest way to explain it, is that when you're focused on making more money and saving more money, that's what you end up with more of. And obviously, when you end up with more of that, you also can't have more debt. And obviously, it doesn't mean that it makes it easy. It doesn't mean that it's not still tough, and there's going to be ebbs and flows. You're going to feel feel like you're getting ahead and then something happens and you're gonna have to use your emergency fund, and that's normal. That's the normal process of life. Everything is that way. But I wanna help give you some main ideas, and we'll talk about this a little bit, and then I wanna give you an example of an actual client that I had just recently and what we've been working on over the last couple of years, and how it's going to look different for them when you're working with a professional versus when you're trying to figure these things out on your own. Now, number one, as much as I say the law of attraction and you shouldn't focus on this, you also have to face reality. And what I mean by that is you need to know exactly what you owe, how much you owe, who you owe, and what the interest rate is on it, and when you're planning on being debt-free. Now, it doesn't mean you need to dwell on it, but you do need to face reality, and there needs to be a little bit of self-criticism, that way you feel bad for doing it, but you have a path to get out of it, so that way you won't get back into it. When you focus on, you realize how tough it can be to make more money and save more money. You realize how dumb it is to get into debt and how hard it was to get out, that pain will actually help drive you away from debt and wanting to make more and to save more. So know how much you owe, but focus on your savings. Number two is a pretty easy one, but make sure you don't have any more late payments. It's such a stupid way to have an extra charge of $40, $50, $60 just because you forgot to pay something on time. You've got to stop doing that. Now, whether you need to automate it, you need to set up alarms on your phone, you need to do a paper calendar, whatever it is that you have to do that will work for you, no more late payments. And number three, some strategies. We'll get into an actual strategy that you would have with access to a financial professional, but if you're still going to be stubborn and you want to do this on your own, you kind of have two different paths. One of them is going to be the debt snowball, and one of them is going to be the debt avalanche. They're basically the same thing. However, one of them you're going to focus on the one with the smallest balance, regardless of whatever the interest rates are. And the other way is you're going to focus on the one with the highest interest rate, which for some reason generally seems to be the one that people have the most money. It just seems to work out that way. So either way, you can focus on that. However, remember, I would advise of obviously paying more than you owe. So you're going to pay minimum balances on all of them, except for one of them, whether it's the highest rate of return, the one that's the most expensive, or the one that you have the lowest balance in, however you want to do that. Focus on that one and pay a little bit extra into it. Then once that one's paid off, you're going to take the payment you had there, plus the whatever the cost was, whatever the interest rate was, and you're going to roll that onto the next one. You're going to slowly pay that one down, and then you're going to pay the next one off, and then you're going to pay the next one off, okay? That's one of the most effective ways to do it. That's the way that I did it. However, the challenge still remains that the vast majority of people will never get out of debt, simply because this will also be a constant reminder of them. It will force them to keep looking at their credit cards, and they're going to keep focusing on their debt, and any extra money they seem to throw on top of the debt, which means that when something actually happens, they have no money and they get right back into debt, which is one of the worst things you can do. It's why we need to focus on saving. Number four, obviously, is stop charging and cancel any extra subscriptions that you can. And in fact, you can do all of them, but cancel all the ones that are not money generating. Meaning if you use Zoom for work or you use Canva to make more money on the side, keep those ones obviously because they're generating income. And number five, not something you would do right now when this video came out in 2022, but something else that you can look at doing once interest rates come back down is it might be a good idea to refinance your mortgage. You might be able to reduce your payments, especially if you don't pull out any money, and you shouldn't pull out any money. Then you can probably reduce your payments and get a smaller monthly payment for your mortgage. But obviously right now, with that mortgages being the highest interest rates they've been in a long time, it's probably not a good idea. You probably don't even need to look into it right now. So let's come into a real life example of what it's like to work with a financial professional and the difference that it makes. So I started working with this couple. They were in their early to mid 30s, or about 35 years old, and they had over $100,000 in unsecured loans, meaning credit cards, repos, some medical bills, all of those kinds of things. They also had over $100,000 in student loans, but I don't want to focus that much on student loans today because they're controversial enough, but there are programs out there. We were able to get their student loans reduced by almost down to a quarter of what they were paying on. They were paying over $1,000 a month on this debt, Actually, I think it might have been a little bit. Yeah, it was about $1,000 a month. We got that reduced to about $250 a month, and eventually they won't even have to finish paying all of it. So there are programs, if you're willing to talk to a financial professional, they can help connect you to some of these programs, because most of the time they want you to go through a financial professional to get referred to them, because they're gonna help set up all the other things. Because if all you do is reduce how much your cost is on your debt, and you use that excess to then get back into debt, there's no point in actually doing it. You do have to actually save the difference. So outside of just the student loan parts, let's just focus on entirely their unsecured loans. So they had over $100,000. Now there are programs out there that will reduce that $100,000 to, or whatever your amount is, to about 60% of what you actually owe. So they went from $100,000 in debt to $60,000 in debt just by starting this program. That's $40,000 in debt just wiped off the top. The next thing that happens, instead of being at a 17, 18, some of them were 22, 23% rate for their credit cards, it drops down to a 0% interest. So it's a total of $60,000 that's going to be paid off, meaning their $3,000 a month that they were paying on all of this now gets reduced to about $1,500 a month. It was just under $1,500. So now at $1,500 a month, they're going to be out of debt in 3.5 years or 42 months, versus if they were paying $3,000 a month on that $100,000, they would pay a total of $147,000 between their debt and the interest, $47,000 in interest, or they can pay $60,000 and be done in 4.5 years and save the difference. So what does that actually look like when we save the difference? So what we did was we took that $1,500 a month and we started saving that at just an average rate of 8%. In 3.5, 4 years, that's going to equal about $81,000. Now that $81,000 is what they would have already been putting into all of that debt, right? So we're just exchanging. Instead of it going to debt, it's going to their savings. It got some interest on it. That's $81,000. So let's say in both cases, they were extremely strict on what they were going to do. Let's say it took them even 5 years, for example. So from 35 to 40, both of them get debt free. One of them is paying off the $100,000. They're paying a total of $147,000 with interest. The other one is paying $60,000 and has now $81,000 saved. That's a huge difference. Now, let's say in both cases, they don't decide to save after that. One of them leaves that $81,000 for the next 32 years, average 8% rate of return. That ends up being over $1 million, $1,035,000 something and change. So it's over $1 million difference through the course of your lifetime by cutting that in half and taking the difference and actually saving it versus paying that into interest. Over $1 million difference. And that's only the cost of waiting 5 years. Could you imagine? They've been trying to get out of this debt for years now. And all the time that the same thing happens, things I've mentioned earlier, they start paying off the debt, they're doing their $3,000, sometimes they put a couple extra $1,000 on there a month, but they were not building an emergency fund, they had no savings set aside. So the second that the car needs something or the AC at the house breaks, they have no emergency fund. So guess where that goes? Right back on the credit cards. So they were in this constant cycle of paying their debt down and then putting something back on their credit cards. So over 5, 6, 7 years, they were in just as much debt, if not more debt than when they started, and all of it because they don't understand how to actually save money. They were focused on debt, and we switched that to them focusing on savings, and they've been doing a great job with it. Now, if we could actually convince them once all of this debt is gone to save that $3,000 a month, that would probably put about $4 million into their retirement. I don't know if we'll be able to convince them of that, but that would be an additional 4-point-something million on top of the $1 million difference that we already made. That's a $5 million retirement just by switching their focus from debt to savings. Isn't that huge? The challenge with that is most people are so fixated on their debt that they wouldn't know what it's like to be in a relationship with money without it. And the cost of that over the course of their life would be more than $5 million simply because they don't learn how to save it. Now, I'm not saying that this is right for everybody. There are some consequences to it. It can hurt your credit for the couple years while you're doing it. But if you're that far in debt, you shouldn't be buying stuff with credit anyway. So take the little bit of a hit for a couple years till you get out of debt. And now they've got so much money saved, they could buy a car cash if they wanted. Don't tell them that. I don't want them to know that. But they could buy it if they had to. They don't need to turn to debt anymore because they've done a good job saving. Now, if you don't think that difference is worth it to talk to a financial professional and you want to keep doing it on your own and staying in debt forever, then that's perfectly fine. You go right ahead and do that. It's America. Marlette and I joke all the time. She's like, shouldn't we do this? I'm like, it's America. You do whatever the heck you want to do. In fact, they'll even find a way to pay you for it. So all kidding aside, that is really your decision on how you want to do it. But you've got to understand the accountability that comes with working with somebody else. It's like having a professional trainer. Now, oftentimes it's more comfortable to not be accountable. The challenge is not being accountable is never good for you. And unfortunately, the things that feel good are usually not good for us. And usually the things that are good for us don't feel good. And one of those is having a financial professional that you're working with that's going to help you keep accountable to make sure that you hit your goals. Now, I hope this was helpful for you. Make sure you smash that like button and also hit the subscribe as well. And if you have some comments, I would love to hear what you have to say about that as well. And don't forget to hit the little bell because we do have our $50,000 financial literacy giveaway that we're doing as well. And we've got tons of content coming out every day at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time so that you can see those videos as well. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day and I will catch you later. Did you guys like the green? I did the green because it matched the book. I don't know if anybody caught it or not. But anyway, have a great day. Bye.